Hello, I bring you my family revenge, which is called. They excluded me from the wedding because I was too dramatic. So I let them find out who actually paid for it. You think you know drama? Wait until you hear what happened at my sister's wedding in Portland. Because when they called me too dramatic and excluded me from the party, I did something they never expected. And the result? Well, let's just say it was a wedding no one will soon forget. My name is Sarah, and this story begins about a year ago, when my younger sister, Jessica, got engaged to her boyfriend, Michael. I was genuinely happy for her. Jessica had always been the straight laced daughter of the family, the one who followed all the traditional steps: college, steady job, serious relationship. I, on the other hand, had always been considered the black sheep, go getter, independent, and yes, sometimes a little too intense for my family's taste. When Jessica called to tell me about the engagement, she was beaming. "Sarah, I want you to be my maid of honor," she said, and I felt my heart warm. Despite our differences, we'd always been close, and the idea of being a part of this special moment in her life thrilled me. But then came the part that changed everything. "There's just one problem," Jessica continued hesitantly. "Michael and I are a little strapped financially. You know, we just bought the house, and with the student loans." Her voice trailed off, and I knew where this was going. "How much do you need?" I asked bluntly. Jessica had always had a hard time asking for help, especially from me, since my digital consulting business had been doing so well over the last few years. "Well, the venue we want is 25 grand, and the catering is another 15 grand, and then there's the flowers, the photographer, the band." She was clearly embarrassed. I didn't hesitate for a second. "Jessica, leave it to me. I'll pay for everything." The silence on the other end of the line lasted so long that I thought the line had been dropped. "Sarah, are you sure? That's a lot of money." "You're my only sister," I said. "Of course I'm sure, but there's one condition. I don't want anyone to know that I paid for it. Let everyone think that you saved money or that Michael's parents helped out, okay?" Jessica happily agreed, and that was how I began secretly funding my sister's dream wedding. And when I say funding, I mean everything. The $60,000 venue overlooking the Columbia River, the $25,000 gourmet catering, the $8,000 award-winning photographer, the $5,000 jazz band, the $4,000 exotic flowers, the $3,000 wedding dress that Jessica had seen in a magazine and sighed over, the trousseaux, the rings, even the honeymoon in Hawaii. In total, I had invested $115,000 in my sister's perfect wedding. But here's the thing about secrets: they have a way of corroding relationships, especially when people start coming up with their own theories about how things are being paid for. As the months passed and the planning got underway, I began to notice a subtle shift in the family dynamic. My mom, Carol, started making weird comments about how Jessica and Michael suddenly had money for everything. My dad, Robert, seemed suspicious every time Jessica shared another expensive wedding detail. And Michael, well, Michael started acting like he was the king of the world, flaunting his expensive choices like he'd won the lottery. Worst of all, Jessica was getting increasingly stressed out trying to keep up the lie. She started making up elaborate stories about promotions at work and unexpected bonuses to justify the spending. And when people questioned her, she got defensive and angry. It was during a bridesmaid's dress fitting that things started to unravel. We were in the boutique, me, Jessica, our cousin Emma, and two of her friends, Rachel and Megan. The dresses Jessica had chosen for the bridesmaids cost $800 each. I had paid for them all, of course, but no one knew that. "Guys, I can't believe Jessica is spending so much money on these dresses," Rachel muttered to Emma, thinking I wasn't listening. "Where the hell did she get all that money from?" Emma shrugged. "Maybe Michael's family is rich? Or maybe she's going into debt to impress everyone." "Typical Jessica," Rachel continued, "always trying to look better than she is." I felt my blood boil, but I kept quiet. Jessica was on the other side of the store, trying on accessories, oblivious to the conversation of her own bridesmaids. I decided it was time to have a serious talk with her. That night, I called Jessica. "I need to talk to you about the wedding," I said. "What's wrong?" Did something happen? People are speculating about the money, Jess. Your own bridesmaids are talking behind your back. Maybe we should tell the truth, at least to the family. No, Jessica replied quickly, almost panicked. Sarah, please. If everyone knows you paid for everything, they'll think I'm a loser who can't even afford my own wedding. Michael would be mortified. I sighed. Jess, there's nothing wrong with accepting help from your family. That's easy for you to say, she snapped, and for the first time I heard a note of resentment in her voice. You've always been the successful, independent one. I just want to have my moment without everyone remembering that it was my rich sister who made it all possible. The words hurt more than she could have imagined, but I decided to let them go. After all, I was doing all this for her. The real drama began 3 weeks before the wedding, during the rehearsal dinner, which guess what? I also paid for. We were at the Riverside Garden, an elegant restaurant that I had booked for 40 people. Everything was perfect. The beautifully decorated tables, the tasting menu, the expensive wines. It was during the toast that everything fell apart. Michael stood up, glass in hand, smiling as if he owned the world. I want to thank everyone for being here today. Jessica and I have worked incredibly hard to put on this celebration for you. It wasn't easy, saving up for all of this, but it was worth every penny. He went on, describing in detail how they had sacrificed and carefully planned every aspect of the wedding. With every word, I felt my anger grow. Not only was he lying through his teeth, he was taking credit for my financial sacrifice. But it was what happened next that really made me furious. And I want to give a special shout out to my future sister-in-law, Sarah, Michael said, pointing at me, who has generously offered to arrange some minor details of the wedding. Minor details? Minor details? I was paying for the entire damn party. The blood rushed to my head, and before I could stop myself, I shot up from my chair. Michael, I think you forgot to mention some important details about who's actually paying for. Sarah, Jessica interrupted me, her eyes wide with panic. No! But it was too late. I was angry and humiliated, and the words started to spill out. Do you want to know the truth about this wedding? Do you want to know how two hard-working young people managed to pay for an event worth over $100,000? Sarah, stop, Jessica pleaded, tears starting to well up. But I couldn't stop. I paid for everything. The venue, the food, the flowers, the photographer, even your honeymoon. And now, I have to listen to this speech about how you worked hard and sacrificed? The entire restaurant went silent. 40 pairs of eyes stared at me, some shocked, some embarrassed. Jessica was openly crying now, and Michael looked like a fish out of water, his mouth opening and closing as he tried to speak. Now you know, I continued, my voice shaking with emotion. The generous, dramatic, and apparently wealthy, Sarah is the one who's paying for this whole party. I hope you enjoy it. I grabbed my bag and left the restaurant, leaving behind an awkward silence and a shocked family. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Angry voicemails from Jessica, calling me selfish and dramatic. Texts from Michael, accusing me of ruining their moment. Even my mother called, saying I had gone too far and that I needed to apologize immediately. But the cherry on the cake was Jessica's call the next afternoon. Sarah, I can't have you at my wedding anymore, she said, her voice cold and resolute. You're so dramatic. You always make everything about yourself. Michael and I decided it would be best if you didn't come. You're excluding me from your own wedding? I asked incredulously. Jess, I'm your sister. A sister who tried to ruin my engagement party out of jealousy, she replied. It's always been this way, Sarah. You can't see other people happy without trying to steal the spotlight. These words were like a punch in the gut. Jealousy? Stealing the spotlight? I had literally financed her happiness. Okay, I replied calmly. If that's how you feel, I'll respect your decision. Thank you for understanding, Jessica said, and I could hear the relief in her voice. One more thing, I added, with a calmness that surprised me. Since I'm no longer welcome, I think it would be appropriate to cancel all payments I've made. You guys can clearly handle this on your own. The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah, you can't do this, Jessica whispered. I can and I will, I replied. Good luck with the wedding, sister. And that's exactly what I did. I called every vendor, explained that there had been a change of plans, and canceled all payments that were scheduled for the next few weeks. The venue, the caterer, the photographer, the band, the flowers, all canceled due to non-payment. It wasn't long before the phone started ringing again. First, it was Jessica, in a complete panic. Sarah, please. They canceled everything. The wedding is in 2 weeks. Then it was Michael, trying to sound diplomatic. Sarah, look, maybe we can talk and work this out like adults. Then my mother, outraged. Sarah Elizabeth, you can't let your sister go without a wedding. And finally, my father, trying to mediate. Daughter, I know you're upset, but this is going too far. To each call, my response was the same. I'm sorry, but I was shut out for being overly dramatic. Clearly, you guys can work things out without my difficult personality getting in the way. 2 weeks before the wedding, Jessica showed up at my door. She was visibly disheveled, with dark circles under her eyes, and her hands shaking. Sarah, please, she begged. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. Can you forgive me? I let her in and made us both coffee. Tell me, Jess. I was so afraid of being judged, of seeming inadequate, that I ended up hurting the one person who truly cared about me, she cried. You did everything for me, and I treated you like crap. Michael said I was being dramatic, that you were always jealous of my accomplishments, and I believed him. What now? Now we don't have a wedding. None of the Jessica looked at me with desperate eyes. Is there any way to fix this? I sighed, looking at my younger sister, who seemed to have aged years in a few weeks. Jess, you've hurt me deeply, but I still love you. Does that mean you're going to help me? It means I'm going to make you a proposal, I replied. I'll finance the wedding again, but this time on my terms. What terms? First, no lies. Everyone will know I paid, period. Second, you will publicly apologize to me at the wedding. Third, Michael will do the same, or there's no deal. Jessica nodded vigorously. Anything, Sarah, anything. And fourth, I added, a small smile appearing on my face. I want to be your maid of honor again, and I want to give a speech. 2 weeks later, there I was, standing at the altar next to my sister, watching her marry Michael in a beautiful ceremony that I had paid for. Again. The difference was that this time, when it came time for the speeches, everyone knew exactly who had made this day possible. I'd like to take a moment to thank my sister Sarah, Jessica said, her emotional voice echoing around the room. Not only for generously funding our wedding, but for teaching me that family means being there for each other, even when we make mistakes. Sarah, I apologize for ever doubting your love and support. You are the best sister anyone could ever have. When it was my turn to speak, I looked around at the 40 guests, many of the same faces that had judged me that night at the restaurant, and smiled. Sometimes, I began, people call us dramatic when we simply refuse to accept being disrespected. Sometimes we need to stand up for our boundaries, even if it causes temporary discomfort. And sometimes the greatest demonstration of love is to allow people to learn from their own choices. I paused, looking directly at Jessica. My sister learned that true family isn't about pride or appearances. It's about being there, especially in the tough times. And I learned that being generous doesn't mean accepting being disrespected. The room was completely silent. So here's my toast, I continued, raising my glass. To second chances, to lessons learned, and to the power of knowing your worth. And of course, to weddings paid for with love, honesty, and a little necessary drama. Everyone laughed and applauded, including Jessica, who was crying with happiness. Later that night, as the party continued with the music I had paid for, Jessica approached me. Sarah, how did you forgive me so easily? I smiled, watching our parents dance on the dance floor, and Michael finally looking humble. Because sometimes, Jess, being dramatic is exactly what the situation calls for. And in the end, I got what I wanted. my sister back, and a family that finally understands my worth.
And that's how an overly dramatic woman got the best of both worlds.
She proved her point and still managed to see her sister happy. Sometimes, the best revenge is simply knowing when you're right. If you like this video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. Leave your opinion in the comments. I'll be here and see you next time.